Friends, last time I was dealing with the benefits available to the contracting parties and the liabilities that they can, whether they or they cannot pass on to the third parties. Now, this has to be also seen in the context of the recommendations made by the Law Commission of India in 1958. And I have said, among the remedies available to the promisee for the benefit of third party, one is the specific performance. Third party for whose benefit a contract has been made may not sue on the contract, but the party making the contract may sue for specific performance for the benefit of third party, even though the damages may be nominal. So also in the suit for damages, the plaintiff cannot recover more than the amount mentioned or required for compensating him for his own loss and not that of the third party. Again, friends, even if a party is a party to the contract and there is an arbitration clause in the contract, it does not bind the third party, where the third party or one of the contracting parties have the same directors, and the third party has received goods under the contract and has paid for the goods, acted in terms of the contract, and has indicated in the prospectus that it was bound by the contract. We shall, of course, see that Section 45 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 does enable non-signatory parties to the agreement with arbitration to pray for and be referred to arbitration in certain exceptional cases. Friends, I have been mentioning to you in my previous talks that the family arrangements and marriage settlements, the considerations, the issue of consideration does not arise. However, the Specific Relief Act 1963 enables specific performance of a contract being a settlement on marriage and family arrangement at a suit of any person beneficially entitled thereunder, and creates an exception to the rule that a party to the contract cannot sue. However, as Allahabad High Court held in Mittal Sen versus Dattaram, it should be noted the fact that an agreement has been entered into by persons who are relations of each other does not make such an agreement a family settlement so as to be binding on the person who are not even parties thereto. This is an old judgment, but still relevant. However, friends, the equitable exception to the doctrine of privity applies, and I am saying it's only an equitable exception where the contract is made in consideration of marriage and intended beneficiary is within the marriage consideration. So also the privity of contract doctrine has been relaxed for commercial reasons to allow certain positive or restrictive covenants to run with the land so as to benefit or burden persons not party to the contract imposing such covenants. The enforcement of this covenant is provided under Section 40 of the Transfer of Property Act in respect of a right to restrain enjoyment in a particular manner of the property imposed for the mere beneficial enjoyment and benefit of an obligation arising out of a contract and annexed to ownership of property. Friends, there is no difficulty in understanding this concept. And now I'm coming to collateral contract. A collateral contract, what is a collateral contract? Is between a third party and one of the parties to the main contract may be associated with the main contract. Such a contract may enable a third party to enforce the main contract. A manufacturer's guarantee is an example of such a contract collateral to the main contract of purchase of goods. For example, I go and buy some electrical goods or some other machinery from a dealer, enter into a contract with him, and he provides me manufacturer's guarantee. It becomes a collateral contract because now it's a contract where there is a main party and the third party. Multilateral contract is where even without knowing, a person can enter into some contracts, and that is if you join a club or some unincorporated association, society, or one member joining the club is deemed to contract with other members. It does so without being even aware of the identity of the others. And only, although his communication is only with the secretary or president of the club, but he contracts with the other members without being aware of their names also. Similarly, where a number of persons enter into a competition, say cycle race or marathon or something, such persons contract not only with the organizing club, but with each other also. Friends, assignment has been defined in R.K. Associates versus Channappa by Karnataka High Court in 1993. Where they say, where an assignment of benefits under the contract is validly made, whether according to the provisions of the statute or otherwise, the promisor is faced with an action brought by a person who he did not regard as a party. Please understand, promisor is faced with an action brought by a person who he did not regard as a party or whom he did not intend to benefit. An assignee will be bound by an arbitration clause in the contract assigned. So here the dilemma of the promisor is that he is faced with action which is brought against him whom he did not even regard as a party or whom he did not intend to benefit. That is the effect of assignment, and this case becomes very important in that regard. Now, friends, I am coming to a very important topic called acknowledgement and estoppel. A stranger to a contract can sue where one of the parties to the contract afterwards agrees with the stranger to pay him directly or is stopped from denying the liability to pay. This is Noramal versus Mohanlal, Rajasthan High Court case of 1966. A promisor can also create privity between himself and third party by conduct, by acknowledgement, or otherwise constituting himself as an agent of third party, entitling the third party to sue. This is such an important case. I recommend that all of you should go through, you should thoroughly study this case of Calcutta High Court of 1996, where I am again repeating it, a promisor may create privity between himself and third party purely by conduct or by acknowledgement or otherwise constituting himself as an agent of the third party, entitling the third party to sue. This is a case where it is Moitrali Mukherjee versus Manak Chand Johri, as I said, of 1996. Friends, I am now coming to these sections where I must lay a lot of emphasis on communication, acceptance, and revocation of the proposals. The section defines communication of proposals, acceptance of the proposals, and the revocation of proposals and acceptances respectively are deemed to be made. Now, a person would be bound by any act or omission or conduct which appears to be an offer or acceptance, as the case may be, to the person to whom it is made. I am saying a person would be bound by any act or omission or conduct which appears to be an offer or acceptance, as the case may be, to the person to whom it is made. I will read what Lord Dipluck says. According to him, Lord Dipluck, in the case of Hannah Blumenthal, 1983, All England Reports, it says, to create a contract by exchange of promises between the parties. Please mark my words. And I am reading Lord Diplock here. To create a contract by exchange of promises between the parties, where the promise of each party constitutes the consideration for the promise of the other. What is necessary is that the intention of each, as it has been communicated to and understood by the other, even though that which has been communicated does not represent the actual state of mind of the communicator, should coincide. Friends, Lord Diplock has very clearly stated that the parties where the promise of each party constitutes consideration for the promise of other, what is necessary is that the intention of each, he lays emphasis on the word intention of each, as it has been communicated to and understood by the other. This is very important in this context. And it goes on to say, now, before I come to section 4, I will say communication may be made effectively in many ways. And it can be written, spoken, signaled, words, or delivery of goods by conduct to the person who has offered to buy at a certain price. And this will signal acceptance also of the proposal. No words are needed to explain the intent with which a person steps into a bus or a tram or a ferry, puts a coin. Now this is communication, this is acceptance also. He has taken a ride, he has paid for it, and therefore it is unspoken. If he has paid if he has dropped the coin, and then it is done that he has accepted whatever was the prescribed. Now the question of intention in such transaction is solved by the provisions relating to attribution. Please understand, the question of intention in such cases is solved by attribution. Now, sometimes silence is also acceptance. Law doesn't cast a duty on the person to whom a proposal is made to reply to the proposal. It is for you. Do you want to reply to the proposal or not? And that's the case which I'd like to emphasize is a case of Allahabad High Court, Gadarmal versus Tata Industrial Bank. However, it says further, and hence acceptance cannot be inferred from the silence. If you make a proposal and the person doesn't reply, you cannot take it that he must have accepted because he has not denied. As a general rule, and again, you cannot, as a general rule, say that a proposal is not accepted or accepted by mere silence on the part of the offering. And in Tata Bank case, it has been held that law doesn't cast a duty on you or doesn't put an obligation on you to reply to every proposal made to you. And you may keep silent on it. And the other person, offerer, cannot take that your silence is acceptance or denial or whatever. And these are called also sometimes, these are called click wrap agreements. Online service site agree to specific set of terms. Sometimes there are exceptions by means of, uh, where you acceptance is by silence, and these are called click wrap agreements. For example, online service site agree to specific set of terms. Let's come to section 4. The definition is before you. Proposal is communicated when it comes to the knowledge of the offeree. Acceptance has to be notified in some perceptible manner. For example, IT Act says that the dispatch of electronic record occurs when it enters a computer resource outside the control of the originator. I am talking in the context of the computer communications. Instantaneous mode, telephone, fax, email, acceptance is, or even the postal, is by the definition as it is here. But acceptance lost or delayed in the transit, there is a presumption that when it is sent, there has to be proper address and delivery proof of dispatch and receipt. A person who has made an offer is considered as continuously making it unless he has brought it to the knowledge of the person to whom it is made that he has withdrawn. But revocation is effectual if it reaches before dispatch of acceptance. Again, it's a very important case which I will place before you for your knowledge. It is called Bhagwan Das versus Girdhari Lal, case decided by Supreme Court in 1966, AIR 1966, Supreme Court, where it was held that making of an offer did not form part of the cause of action. Please, friends, remember Supreme Court says making of the offer does not form part of the cause of action for damages for breach of contract which resulted from acceptance of the offer. This case assumes a lot of importance because the court here seems to emphasize that making of the offer did not form part of the cause of action for damages for breach of contract or which resulted from acceptance of the offer. And friends, in this same case, it was further held that a court would not have jurisdiction merely because an offer was transmitted from within its jurisdiction. Please understand, as Justice Hidayatullah said, Section 4 applied in all cases where the parties were at a distance, although communications was instantaneous. The language of Section 4 was adequate to cover new inventions. A contract is made where the acceptance is received, and the court at the place where acceptance is received has jurisdiction. This is the decision of the Supreme Court per Justice, Honorable Justice Hidayatullah. And let me repeat, a contract is made where communication is received and the court at the place where acceptance is received has the jurisdiction.